Before we get into this, if you enjoy honest NBA breakdowns that actually respect your intelligence, make sure you're subscribed, not for hype, but so you don't miss when the real picture finally comes into focus. Now, let's be clear about one thing right away. The Giannis trade landscape is finally becoming easier to read, and ironically, that clarity makes a deadline trade less likely, not more. With roughly a week left before the deadline, the expectation around the league is simple. Nothing meaningful is happening until Thursday, and even then, nothing is guaranteed. Milwaukee isn't rushing this. They're evaluating whether acting now actually helps them or hurts them. That matters, because if the Bucks were truly desperate, we'd already see momentum. Instead, what we're hearing is patience. And patience is usually a signal that the offers on the table aren't good enough. Right now, there are only a handful of teams realistically in the mix. A few contenders with short-term urgency. If a deal happens before the deadline, it almost certainly comes from that limited group. But here's the problem. Limited bidders mean limited leverage. And that's where this whole situation flips. Waiting changes everything. At the moment, several well-positioned franchises are on the sidelines. Not because they don't like Giannis, but because their current plans are working. Young cores are winning games. Development is on schedule. No one wants to be the team that panics too early and blows up a long-term vision. But the playoffs have a way of rewriting confidence. A first-round collapse, a second-round disappointment, one series that exposes cracks no one wanted to admit were there. That's when urgency is born. And suddenly, teams that were out start picking up the phone. Teams with elite young talent. Teams with surplus draft capital. Teams that can actually meet a superstar price without gutting themselves. That type of competition does not exist at the deadline. It exists in the offseason. From Milwaukee's perspective, the logic is straightforward. The current offers don't disappear in the summer, but better ones might appear. Add in the reality of Giannis dealing with physical setbacks, and the Bucks have even less incentive to force a rushed decision. So unless someone steps forward with an offer that fundamentally changes their future overnight, Milwaukee has every reason to wait. And that patience might be the smartest move they've made all year. Before we get lost in fake trade machines and deadline panic, there's a massive part of this conversation that keeps getting ignored. Giannis has far more leverage than people want to admit. This isn't just about what Milwaukee wants or what teams are willing to offer. It's about time, and Giannis controls more of it than anyone else in this process. Here's why. Giannis can become a free agent in 2027. That means if a team trades for him, they're not acquiring a decade-long cornerstone. They're getting the remainder of this season, all of next year, and that's basically it, unless Giannis chooses to stay. In other words, any team that trades for him without a clear long-term plan is gambling their future on a promise that doesn't exist. And that changes everything. If Giannis wanted to, he could quietly dictate where he ends up. No public demands, no messy trade request, just silence. And silence is powerful, because front offices understand the risk. Gut your roster, empty your draft chest, and then watch Giannis walk in 2027 to a team with max cap space? That nightmare is very real. Multiple franchises will have the flexibility to make a serious run at him if he reaches that point. So if Giannis is serious about winning, the question becomes much bigger than which team trades for me. It becomes, who do I want to build the next era with? Because championships aren't won by chasing the past. They're won by aligning with the future. And that's where the league quietly divides itself into tiers. Start at the bottom, and you find very good players, all-stars, elite scorers, high-usage guards, but not players you'd bet an era on. Talents who can win games, sell jerseys, and anchor offenses, but still need the perfect situation to reach the mountaintop. Valuable, yes. Era-defining? Probably not. Move up a level, and things get more interesting. This is where true franchise leaders live. Players who can carry teams deep into the postseason with the right support. The kind of stars who make winning feel sustainable, not accidental. Put the right pieces around them, and banners become realistic. Then there's the tier that separates superstardom from inevitability. This is where you find players who don't just participate in the league, they shape it. The ones who dictate playoff matchups, force rule adjustments, and become the measuring stick for everyone else. Players young enough that their best years are still ahead, but already dominant enough to scare entire conferences. And above all of that, there's the rare air. The players who define decades, not seasons. The ones every superstar eventually gravitates toward if winning is truly the priority. Right now, there are only a couple names in that category. The kind of players where, if Giannis ever joins them, the league stops pretending there's parity. That's why this decision isn't urgent. That's why Milwaukee isn't panicking. And that's why deadline noise is mostly just noise. Because the real Giannis decision isn't about this week. It's about the next era of the NBA and who he wants to rule it with. The next era of the NBA is coming, and everyone can feel it. Victor Wembanyama represents that shift more than anyone. San Antonio knows it. That's why they've been disciplined. They're not chasing shortcuts, not sacrificing timelines, and not panicking at the deadline. But here's the uncomfortable truth. If Giannis is truly serious about winning championships, there may not be a more powerful long-term pairing than Giannis and Wembanyama. Size, defense, versatility, longevity. It's terrifying. And it's exactly why it's not happening right now. At the deadline, what we're really looking at are desperation plays. A few teams pushing chips in early, hoping to force something before the door closes. Golden State, Miami, New York, Minnesota. Those are the only real deadline players. And among them, Golden State stands out for one simple reason: flexibility. They can construct a clean, direct deal without turning it into a math equation. Contracts, young players, draft capital, everything lines up without needing half the league involved. The problem? Clean doesn't always mean smart. Other teams aren't just hesitant, they're boxed in. Minnesota, for example, may love the idea of pairing Giannis with Anthony Edwards, but love doesn't fix asset problems. No picks, aging contracts, one truly elite young defender. Any realistic deal becomes a logistical nightmare, requiring multiple teams, delayed compensation, and enormous risk. That's not something front offices want to gamble on with the deadline clock ticking. And this is the entire point. Deadline deals are rushed. Off-season deals are calculated. When you wait, the board changes. Draft capital unlocks. Pick restrictions loosen. Teams that believed in themselves in February suddenly have to answer hard questions in May. A first-round exit changes confidence. A second-round collapse creates pressure. Suddenly, patience turns into urgency, and urgency creates better offers. That's why the noise has died down. That's why the panic has faded. Once the initial shock wore off, reality set in. Milwaukee isn't cornered, Giannis isn't forcing anything, and the smartest move is the least dramatic one. So let's be honest. The reason you clicked on this video is simple. You wanted to know if Giannis is getting traded right now. And the most realistic answer is no. Not because it's impossible, but because it doesn't make sense. Not yet. Yes, it's fun to imagine Giannis in another uniform. Yes, some teams are swinging big. But when you strip away the headlines, waiting benefits Milwaukee far more than rushing ever could. And when summer arrives, the offers won't shrink. They'll multiply. That's when this finally ends. But while everyone is laser-focused on Giannis, something else is quietly boiling. A different superstar, a different franchise, and a situation that might actually explode sooner rather than later. There's real tension in Los Angeles, real questions about the future, and a recent report that raised eyebrows across the league, because while Giannis may be waiting, LeBron James might not be. And that's where this story gets even more interesting.